Welcome to the third virtual chapter meeting for DBA Fundamentals in March. Today we've got Brent Ozar with what to do when SQL Server is slow. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. It's going to be a checklist, and this is something everybody needs. Everybody's going to be hit with this, and you need to know you need to have a plan in place. Anyway, let me do the other things first, and then I'll talk about that a little bit, or I'll let Brent talk about it. Here's our sponsor, Century One. They provide the funds to do these presentations and give away prizes. So please go check them out. They've got lots of free stuff, articles, videos, downloads. Plan Explorer is a fantastic tool. They've got services, and just give them a shot. Go check it out. With our virtual group, there's one thing coming up. There's a discount code, VGSTRM843, that will give you the streaming sessions from Past Summit 2017. When you sign up for Past Summit, it's now $1,699. It's going to go up in 2 days, at least $200. And at that point, they will then give us a discount code for $150 off if that's what you prefer. But anyway, no matter what, with our chapter, we give away $500 if you use our code to one person. Out of the people that use our codes, we usually get 50 or 60 people, and we usually get a couple of sessions that we can give away to people. So that's a great deal. We also, I know this is our giveaways and everything, instead of giving away every session, we give away everything at the end, because we've got so many different versions. It makes it easier. So we're going to be giving away a $1,000 Amazon gift card to one person. We're going to give away a $500 Amazon gift card to another's, and $300 to another. You have to be a member of PASS. You must follow us on Twitter, and you must be subscribed to our YouTube channel. And you'll get one entry for each session that's attended from the first of the year until June the 30th. So check those out. Here's our sessions coming up. We got Brent today. We got Paul Randall next session. Then we got Thomas LeBlanc with Execution Plan for Beginners. That's the first time we've had Thomas. Then we got Kendra Little with Index Design Patterns for Beginners. Then we got Jess Borland. So we've got a great lineup coming up. PASS has lots of virtual groups. There's one for everything out there, pretty well every major global language and most major topics. So give that a shot. Check those out. Here's some women. The Women in Technology chapter is having doing 3 or 4 sessions this month. So check them out. They've got one by Kaylin Delaney, and let's see, Saturday Night SQL's got one coming up that's pretty good. SQL Saturdays are mini Past Summits. They're free. They're in your area. You have to buy your lunch. Other than that, sponsors usually pay for everything. And there's lots of great sessions at local chapters. So go to SQLSaturday.com and see what's closest to you. We will be recording this session, and it'll be on our YouTube channel probably within a couple of days. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brent. And I promised I'd try to keep it under 6 minutes. So I don't know how it did pretty good, but
you did.
Good.
You did. All right. Okay. Let me make my other computer a presenter, and then I will share the desktop over there. Not that one, the other computer. Hold on a second here. Make presenter. Make Brent presenter. Yes. Show my screen. And oh no, I got it. I'm good.
Okay, good deal.
Right. Hide all webcams. There we go. We are off and running. So, ladies and gentlemen, howdy. I am Brent Ozar. I am a Microsoft Certified Master, which just means I've made a lot of expensive mistakes with other people's computers, and now I try to help other people avoid some of those same mistakes. You can catch my blog over at brentozar.com. Also have all kinds of other stuff like SP Blitz, the First Responder Kit, groupbuy.org, dbareactions.com, all kinds of fun stuff. When you're a database administrator or you're any kind of emergency triage professional, I want you to have a set of processes that you can quickly train other people on. I do a lot of interviewing candidates for my clients who are hiring a DBA or hiring a systems administrator or a database developer. And one of the questions I'll often ask people is, so when you get the phone call and they say that the SQL Server is slow, what do you do? And I don't want to hear somebody groping around like they're in the back seat of a car in high school going, I don't know where my hands go. I want you to have a written set of checklists that you walk through because you're going to be doing this the rest of your life. This is what's working with servers and services. Even when you go to the cloud, you're going to need some kind of process checklist to go through and say, here's what I'm going to do next. Now, I went through and I built my own first responder kit and with exact checklists on how I go about attacking a SQL server. I like to think about medical professionals. When you walk in the front door of the emergency room, I don't know how this worked out. Everyone else in my family is in medicine except me. They're all like either nurses or run hospitals or clinicians or whatever. You walk in the front door of a hospital and there's a triage nurse. The triage nurse's job is to figure out how bad of shape you're in and who you should see in which order. Nobody goes to the emergency room for a good time, just like nobody walks into your cubicle for a good time. Trust me, I know. When they walk into your cubicle, they think they have an emergency. And so the triage nurse has these levels that they have to figure out. I'm so glad I don't work in the medical profession. It's terrifying. I just pass out at the sight of blood. So thankfully, our triage levels aren't anywhere near this panicky. Here's what our triage levels look like. Level 1, the server is down and not responding to queries. Level 2, the server is going to go down if we don't take action fast. Level 3, the server is in bad shape, but it's going to survive. Even if we go get drunk for lunch, do whatever, the server's going to keep working. We may not keep our jobs, but the server will keep working. Level 4, some parts of some applications are unusually slow. Or level 5, Bob's report is unusually slow. This is going to sound kind of backwards, but when I'm up at level 1 and level 2, I am comfortable doing things I've never done before. When the server's on fire, I'm kind of okay Googling, looking at error messages and going, wait a minute, this trace flag looks like it's exactly matching up to the error message I'm getting. What would happen if I put in this trace flag? Because the server's dead. It's not like it's going to get any worse. I do want to keep track of what I'm doing and roll it back if it doesn't work correctly. But strangely, I am more comfortable doing changes in production when I am at level 1 and level 2 than I am down at levels 3, 4, and 5. Just because the server's slow, that doesn't mean I want to put a trace flag in. Just because the server's slow doesn't mean I want to kill a query. I want to think and test and try things in development first before I go run in and put something into production. Because I've done, even myself, made things a whole hell of a lot worse instead of better when I've gone running in, throwing in things like trace flags. And I also have to be aware that sometimes Bob is just mad as hell, and today's the day he's not going to take it anymore. And he's coming into my cubicle going, see this report? It shows query time over the last 3 days. You suck. We're going to do something about this right now, or I'm calling the president. Sometimes I have to drop everything and work with Bob. I just need to set perspectives with everybody about what I'm willing to change in production. I may even sit and babysit Bob for a while and work directly with him, even though I think I may have more important other things going on. Sometimes you just got to be a politician. My goal is to fill this form out as quickly as possible. And you're going to see me fill this form out as I step through a series of emergencies in my SQL Server. When I'm mentoring DBAs in person, what I do is I print this out and stick it on their cubicle wall so that as the emergency strikes, we're going to rip it down and we're going to start filling it out. Because when an emergency strikes, I want people thinking methodically. Number 1, what are the symptoms? Symptoms are what the end users are screaming about. The symptoms are never fragmentation. The symptoms are never some page IO latch wait. Give me the thing that end users are complaining about. 2, the root cause. What do I think? Notice that it says in there, I believe the root cause is. Sometimes I'm wrong. It's going to happen, believe it or not, even me. 3, if I don't take action now, what's going to be the effect? I want to set this in perspective with managers and other people so that they know I'm working against a clock, because sometimes I am working against a clock. Other times, if I don't fix it, Bob's report's going to be slow until I finish, but nobody else is going to be affected. And then based on what I know in the first 3, I take action, or I take an action to investigate it, or I put it in a queue. Maybe it's my queue, maybe it's the developer's queue, who knows yet. But I gotta fill out the top before I fill out the bottom. I know lots of people who will go, reboot the server. Go figure out what the root cause is first before you make a change, just so that you don't make things worse. Now, the tools that I use in order to figure this out, this is the same exact triage step list that I use. I go through, number 1, my monitoring software, number 2, Atom Mechanics, who is active, 3, SP Blitz First. I'm going to show you each one of these and explain how I go about using it in an emergency. I step through these exact same things in the same order every time, and I make sure that my juniors step through the same exact list every time. Because when I get involved, my first question is going to be, all right, what did the SP who is active say? Show me the copy of that output. What did SP Blitz First say? What was a copy of that output? Because I want to get up to speed as quickly as possible. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So let's start with your monitoring software. And when I think about your monitoring software, I don't care whose you use, they're all roughly the same. What part does monitoring actually do? Does it tell you what the symptoms are? Not really. You open up most monitoring software and it just has a bunch of red, yellow, and green lights. It looks like a Christmas tree light, stuff flashing all over the place. Does it tell you what the root cause is? No. It says things like page life expectancy is low, disk queue length is high, and it just looks like some kind of swear trek alarm is just flashing at you. Even worse, they look that same way even when the server's fine. A lot of you probably installed monitoring software. You just open it up and you're like, oh God, my servers are in horrible shape, which is probably true for most of us, but it looks that same way whether people are screaming or not. Level 3, does it tell you what's going to happen if you don't take action now? Not even close. Monitoring software is not that advanced. It's not the monitoring software's fault. It's just this is the way our monitoring software is today. Fourth part, does it tell you what action you should take? Yes. It tells you things like create this index, drop this table, add this, improve this query. Gives you a big long list of all kinds of things you could do. One of my favorite things that a monitoring app used to have was a big red button in the middle of it that said free the plan cache. As if the plan cache was tied up in a closet somewhere, begging to be freed. Free the plan cache 7. Monitoring software is a lot like the heart rate alarms or vital stats alarms in an emergency room. They're in the background, and they're beeping on a steady cadence to tell the surgeons that everything's still okay or that it's not okay. But you don't see all of the surgeons huddled around Clippy, the monitoring app, going, what do you think we should do now? This bar graph has gone up. I think it says right here that we should try inserting a needle. No, monitoring software is just a backup to trained professionals. You are the trained professional that needs to have some kind of checklist involved to go through these things and figure out what you need to do next. Whenever you get an email from a monitoring app, it should be like all hands on deck. It should be exactly like when the flatline alarm goes off in the surgeon's emergency room. They jump into action and do something different. They don't look at the monitoring app. They go do something on the server. They start examining the server and see what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of us have set up our monitoring apps and they send us so many spam emails that we set up an Outlook rule to put all of those notifications into a folder. If you're doing that, you suck. It's not the monitoring tool's fault. They all need to tell you about all kinds of things. But within the first week, you need to go in there and tune all the thresholds so that when an email fires, it actually comes to your inbox. If all you want is spam with all kinds of thousands of emails with stuff you don't need, go sign up for newsletters. There's tons of them in our community. We'd be glad to send you all kinds of blog posts that you won't read and your server will still suck. So I like having monitoring software. If I were to go back to being a full-time DBA, it would be a big part of me going back to work. I would require it on every server that I have, but you got to tweak the thresholds. And when the monitoring email comes in, I don't go to the monitoring software because it's typically seconds or minutes out of date. I want to see live what's happening on the SQL Server right now. And that's where the first procedure that I'm going to run comes in, SP who is active. It's a totally free stored procedure from MVP Adam Mechanic over in the Boston area of the United States. It's been really the world standard for the replacement for Activity Monitor and SP Who and SP Who 2. It tells you what's going on in the SQL Server and gives you way more details, more accurate details than things like Activity Monitor will give you. And unlike monitoring tools, it's updated live. You can see it just by hitting F5. Let's go see how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out into SQL Server 2017, but everything I'm going to show you here works on SQL Server 2008 and newer. I need to put my SQL Server under some kind of emergency. So to do it, I'm going to use this open source utility called SQL Query Stress. As it happens, this tool was also originally written by Adam Mechanic, the same guy who wrote SP Who is Active. It's maintained by a different guy, Eric EJ. George says, look at this guy, he's a pro. Look at the relationship he has with his mic. He hugs it like his wife. This is my life as I sit in this room for like 8 hours at a stretch. The instant I'm done with this webcast, I switch back over to a training class. So might as well be a radio DJ in here. There's so many skills, so many jokes about skills. When I fail out, when they replace me with the robots, I'll become a DJ, except I suck as a DJ. So the way the SQL Query Stress works, go ahead and I've opened this thing. It's open source. You can go play around with the code if you want. I'm going to go point it at my database server, SQL 2017b. I can point it at any database that I want, say Stack Overflow, test my connection, and now I can run whatever query I want. So I could run, select get date if I wanted to, and then I could go run it, say 1,000 times across 4 threads. But what fun would get date do? Because that wouldn't look anything like the workloads that your server's under right now. Instead, I'm going to run a stored procedure. And if you Google for my name and that stored procedure, it'll go through and give you links to queries that I've got that go through and do load tests against your SQL Server, random workload tests with the Stack Overflow database. But I'm going to pretend that somebody just called in and they go, Brent, we're having an emergency with our SQL Server. Something's going wrong. You need to go take a look. The very first thing that I'll go do is I'll go run SP Who is Active. And I'm going to run it in a way that's going to sound kind of dorky. I'm just going to hit execute and hit execute again and hit execute. I'm looking for a very fast sample of, is the server responding or not? SP Who is Active is really lightweight. It runs really fast. Under almost every circumstance, this thing will finish in a matter of less than a second. There are times where it will take several seconds or even minutes when your server is utterly screwed. Trust me, your server probably isn't that bad. The first thing that I'm looking for when I go through and run this thing is SP Who is Active even responding? If SP Who is Active won't work, or if I can't get a connection to my SQL Server, this isn't a performance emergency, it's an outage. That's not the topic of today's session. I'm focusing on what to do when SQL Server is slow. We do have a totally free first responder kit. It's in a Word document and it's open source. You can go take it, edit it exactly the way you want for your company. But what this is a much more detailed checklist that you can use and hand to your juniors so that when they're troubleshooting an emergency, they're filling it out and they're not calling me on Friday night at 9 p.m. going, I don't know what's wrong. Nothing seems like it's working. I want to be able to say when they're calling me at the bar and I'm hammered on tequila, I want to be, okay, read off to me what's in the first responder kit, go through each line. Were you able to connect? Yes or no? Did anything come back out of there? Did you have trouble connecting? Now, as you move down through this list, it becomes more and more senior. It becomes more and more senior DBA-ish. But when I first get started with this, I'm going to have my help desk fill out whatever they can, and we'll work forward from there. Bill says, Azure SQL DB. Do these things work in Azure SQL DB? No. The problem with Azure SQL DB is that often Microsoft changes the DMV contents on us. So sometimes they'll work one day and then not work weeks later. So I haven't put time into making mine work in Azure SQL DB. Adam has recently put work into his again, into SP Who Is Active. And these work as of this recording, March 20th of 2018. But who knows tomorrow? Like, it can be totally different again. Managed instances is a much better story. Microsoft's replacement for Azure SQL DB that supports cross-database transactions, all kinds of cool stuff. So that, assuming that SP Who Is Active, we'll come back into this, assuming that SP Who Is Active does run, now I'm starting to look at how many rows are coming back and have any queries been running for a while. Let's go look at SQL Server Management Studio again. Now, when I hit execute on this, and I hit execute again, it's finishing quickly, but I'm going to start reading it from top to bottom. This top column is or left-right column is which queries have been running the longest. This query up top has been running for 52 minutes. This one's been running for 3 minutes, 3 minutes. And as I scroll across, I can see who ran it. I can see what the query is, only the current query that Norm's working on. And I can see what queries are waiting on. I don't expect you in the course of a triage session to understand what every wait type is, but this one, even you, dear attendee, can figure out what this means. This means locking. This means that this session isn't waiting on anything, but these guys are waiting on locks. They are being blocked by other sessions. And now I can start to fill out my spreadsheet or my what's going on here. A blocking chain is an emergency because whenever someone starts a transaction, SQL Server won't automatically commit it for them if they just begin it and then they don't commit themselves. Let's take a look at the query that Norm, the new guy, was running here. He did a begin tran, he did an update, and then he didn't commit his transaction. Right now I have a time bomb because when this hits, Norm, until he commits, his query won't finish on its own. And these other queries, they're going to wait literally forever. And I could even have problems with my log drive filling up. Because once Norm commits or begins a transaction, now SQL Server is going to keep growing that database's log file. Doesn't matter whether the database is backed up or not. SQL Server needs to be able to roll back Norm's transaction. So it's going to keep the whole log going all the way back to Norm's transaction as in use until he either commits and rolls back. The log file on my primary is growing. If I have availability groups, database mirroring, log shipping, the logs on the secondaries are growing. And now I'm in a time race to fix this before I run out of drive space. So now I can start to fill out that form. Whenever I see a big, long blocking chain, come back here, your first immediate reaction is to go kill the lead blocker. And I don't blame you, but you're about to see why that's not such a good idea. My first mission here is just to figure out what I think the root cause is and document it. I need to dig a little deeper, and let me tell you why. When you're looking at SP Who Is Active, it's really tempting to say, well, this Norm, the new guy, he's got the problem here. I can see exactly what query he ran. I'm just going to go ahead and kill Norm's session. All I have to do is kill 61, and then he's gone. There's a problem with that. Rolling work forwards, like accomplishing work in SQL Server, is multi-threaded. But when you roll work backwards, like when you kill or do a rollback, much of that is single-threaded, which means you could have a query that was running across 8 cores for an hour chugging away, and when you kill it, it could take 4, 6, 8 hours or more to roll back. Even if you try to restart the SQL Server in order to stop that rollback, it won't work. SQL Server reads the transaction log, figures out what it was doing at the time of the restart, and goes, oh yeah, I was rolling back. Let me get back to that. And then your database is unusable as it tries to fix itself. The only way that you can stop a rollback once it starts is to either stop SQL Server, then delete that log file, delete the transaction log file, and start SQL Server again. Now, you don't have a rollback problem. Now you have a corrupt database, but you stopped the rollback. So there you go. Never, ever, ever, ever do that, needless to say. You're better off restoring from a backup instead. So people look at this and just go, well, but don't worry, it's only a single begin tray, and I know this is a piece of cake. It doesn't matter. It only took like a minute probably in order to execute. I could kill that. Nah, not so fast. You're only seeing the last query Norm ran. I happen to have Norm's window over here. Here's the begin tran that he did. I'm going to add another line in, and I'm going to say select get date. I didn't commit the transaction. I didn't roll it back. All I did was ask SQL Server, yo dog, what time is it? And now when I go back over to SPU as active, something different's going to display. Before, I had a query that had been running for coming up on an hour that was blocking queries that had been run for a shorter period of time. If I run who is active again, now I see something that looks weird. 2 selects are being blocked. These guys have been running for 8 minutes. They are waiting on locks and have been waiting on locks for minutes from a query that is only doing select get date and has only been running for 26 seconds. This is not a bug. This is just the chain of T-SQL that Microsoft gives us. All we can do is show you what's inside the DMVs and stuff like DBCC input buffer. We don't know the full chain of transactions that Norm, the new guy, did in order to get to this point. So this sucks. If you're going to go kill Norm's query, you don't really have any idea what he did. It's dangerous. This is why I want to document and pass it up the chain before I go through and kill somebody's query. Because if I kill somebody's query and they've done a bunch of work, that's on me. It's not on them. Fortunately, Adam has something that'll make this way easier. Check out the parameter get locks equals 1. When I run it with get locks equals 1, it takes a little bit longer, but that's not on, and that's why it's not on by default. You need it anyway for an emergency. And the new thing it added was this locks column over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Norm, the new guy's column and or row and click on his locks. And it shows me something that I don't expect you to be able to interpret in real world queries that are pages long, but you'll start to understand that in the Stack Overflow database, on the users table, Norm has an exclusive lock on that entire object. Here, maybe based on my own system, I know that the users table is only about 1 gig in size. So it should be fairly easy for me to roll that back. Whereas if Norm had done this big spectacular transaction, locking 50 tables exclusively, that might give me a hint that the rollback might suck pretty bad. I wish I had a better way of showing you all the work that Norm did in order to get to this point. This is where, in theory, things like extended events and monitoring tools can come in, but you would have to set that up for every running query, capturing all kinds of statements in order to get the full call stack for something that somebody might have started 2 days ago. I've seen a lot of applications where they'll miscode and have a begin tran and not the commit, and then you waltz in and you're screwed. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to write that up in our little format here. What level I'm on, I'm not on level 1. I'm already past level 1. I know that the SQL server's okay. He's responding to queries, but I am at level 2. This server will go down when there's a lock that's being held open on a table. Someone's done a begin tran without a commit. We will go down when we run out of disk space, and I can't fix it with things like log backups or full backups. So I'm now done with my troubleshooting on the first emergency. Let's fill out our root cause form. The symptoms are a frozen website and query timeouts. I believe that the root cause is a blocking chain led by Norm, the new guy. If we don't take action now, I'm going to have continued blocking. It simply won't solve itself, and the website is going to become unusable. So based on that, I recommend that we kill Norm's query. I may also put in a ticket to remove Norm's access, because I'm going to make it exceedingly clear that if you screw up my production server to the point where other people have to get involved, we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm horrible about pushing people under the bus. You break my SQL server, I'm going to push you under the bus so fast, you're going to become one with the bus. So when I go to kill the query, switch back over here, I can just kill 61, but then managers are going to constantly ask me a question while this query is rolling back. So I'm going to do something real quick and show you things in a couple of windows. It's going to require me clicking back and forth and doing a little stunt here. So I'm going to go, find the right window. I'm going to go kill the query, run this, and then come back over here. Now I just killed Norm's query, but as I run SQWhoisActive, it shows that Norm's query is still there and that he's still holding locks. Paul says, Brent, you are so funny. I'm a lot less funny when there's an emergency going on. It's a lot of fun to laugh about it afterwards. So I ran SQWhoisActive and I killed this Norm, but his query's still there. Some of the secret to this, if I scroll across with SQWhoisActive, is it shows that this query is in a status of rolling back, status rollback. Until SQL Server finishes that rollback, this thing is still going to keep holding locks. I'm going to stop my load test just so it doesn't kill my SQL Server here. Now, eventually what's going to happen is I keep doing SQWhoisActive going, what's going on the server? Is the rollback done or not? I'm going to wish that this %complete was populated, but it is not. It's populated for things like backups and restores that are very predictable. Killing a session is not as predictable, how much work that's going to be involved. Plus, it changes all the time based on how much other load is going on the server. So what I did was I hopped over into another window and I ran this, kill 61 with status only. This added parameter gives you a status report about how far that kill has progressed forward. It gives you two things, what percentage complete it is and how much time is remaining. The time remaining is exactly like that old Windows file copy dialog box where it's like 3 seconds, 4 hours, 2 days, a hurricane, ham sandwich, just completely unreliable, all over the place numbers. The rollback % completion is not really all that reliable either, but at least it always moves forwards instead of backwards. It tends to go up, 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 up. And then just like every Windows dialog, it holds at 99% for forever, but most of the time it's better than nothing. So at least you have something that you can go report back to management. Especially for things that take hours, when the rollback takes hours, or I've had one case where it took days, management will sometimes say to me, can't you do a better job of estimating? And I'll be like, look, I'm sorry, I haven't spent that much time killing Norm's queries. But if you want me to get better at it and kind of performance tune it, here's what we'll do. We'll go into a conference room and we'll have Norm write queries. And as he executes them, I'll just kill them. And then we'll start to time how long they take. That sounds like fun. I could spend a day doing that. That's why people don't ask me back very often. Now, eventually, Norm's rollback is going to finish. And when I go to run kill 61 with status only, when it's finished, it says, we're done here. Process 61 is not a valid ID. But even when I try, if I accidentally hit someone else's, let me, here, I'll do a select count star, oops, from Stack Overflow, DBO posts with index equals 1. I'm going to do that just so that it starts a query. Oh, nope, I got to get a SPID, which is SPID 56. See if I can do it in time. 56. Execute. No, that wasn't execute. I got it. Sweet. It says status report cannot be obtained because the rollback for this SPID is not in progress. So this is kind of nice because if someone happens to step into Norm's SPID right after it gets done killing, I don't accidentally kill it again. So status only is totally safe to use. No gotchas with that. You can just use that whenever you've killed somebody. It doesn't initiate the kill. All it does is give you feedback on what that guy's actually doing or how far along his rollback has come. Wish it was accurate, but it's not terribly accurate. I'm going to go back into that window and start a little something else for Norm. Close this window. So funny. You guys aren't even asking any questions because you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm learning things. I know you're learning things because the attendance numbers keep going up. Ha 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 ha. I'm spying on you, data. Don't watch my password. I'm not sure I remember my password. I remembered my password. Oh, it's unbelievable. We're going to do a change here. We're going to do something like this. And all right, now back over in my PowerPoint. So now, SP who is active usually rules out number 1 and number 2. Not always, not bulletproof on number 2, but usually I can tell if there's a blocking chain, that means timber, this thing's actually going down. Vioral just said over in Slack, in the group by Slack, hi, I'm Norm. Was someone looking for me? Now I'm going to move on to the rest. I'm going to move on to the server's in bad shape, but it's going to survive even if I don't do anything. The next tool that I have in here is SP Blitz First. And yes, I realize the irony of writing something called First that isn't the first tool that I use. I have ambitions that someday it's going to be the first tool that I use. It's just not quite there yet. Maybe if I spent more time doing tools and less time doing webcasts, maybe I would make better progress. So what SP Blitz First does, Tyler says, did you get that null correct? I did. I'll show you that trick later here in a minute. Matt says, is there something similar for getting an estimate for a rollback that's happening due to a SQL Server service restart? Yes, you can look in the error log. The error log will show percentage completions. It's just not live updated. It's updated from time to time. So what SP Blitz First does is I get so sick and tired of people calling me on the phone going, are you doing anything on the SQL Server? Is there anything going on the SQL Server? Can you take a look at the SQL Server right now? I'm like, screw you. You go look at the SQL Server. So this tool, people can go run whenever they just want to get a rough idea of what's going on the SQL Server. So we're going to do this other thing, SP Blitz First. But before I do it, I'm going to go through and start up my load test again. Go. There it goes. Then I'm going to go run SP Blitz First. This is not really designed for you. This is really designed for people like the help desk and your more junior staff. What this thing does is it takes a snapshot of a bunch of DMVs, it waits for 5 seconds, takes another snapshot, and then compares the difference of those 2 snapshots to understand what was going on right now. In this example, it gives you a prioritized list of things that it thinks are happening on the SQL Server right now. So for example, the first thing that pops up here is high CPU utilization. I know a lot of us remote desktop into our SQL servers, or we open Activity Monitor to get a feel for that. Those tools are kind of evil and kind of crappy. Instead, here I can see 58%. And I can click on it and just see a little more details if I want. All of these have click for more details inside there. It tells me the top wait stats on my SQL Server right now. Gives me batch requests per second. I'm doing 58 queries per second right now. My wait time per core per second, like how much time I'm spending waiting on stuff. And if there's something really ugly going on, SP Blitz First will also tell you several of those as well. Let me show you over here in the PowerPoint. So what it'll also show you is somebody goes, now why is it doing that? Somebody said, Brent's Windows isn't activated. What's up with that? Yeah, I like to stick it to the man. That's not true. I just keep redoing VMs all the time, and I don't bother with the activation. Same thing with Office. You'll notice that my Office isn't activated all the time either. Click here to renew your subscription. Click here to fix your login process, Microsoft. It's bad. I'm like trying to give them the money for Office, and they won't take the money for Office half the time. So what SP Blitz First will also warn you about is someone's running a CheckDB. There's a data or a log file growing or shrinking. There's a long-running query that's blocking others. Page life expectancy is low. Slow reads or writes. All kinds of things that it'll alert you about if they're happening out of the ordinary. The server was restarted recently. The plan cache was refreshed recently. The idea of this tool is that I'm going to just have my help desk go run it and then read me off the list of warnings. This is perfect for that Friday night with tequila phone call when they call me in and go, seems like something's wrong on the SQL Server. Now I can say, did you run SP was active? Yeah, it worked. Run SP Blitz first and read the results off to me top to bottom from priority 1 down to priority whatever we're on now. This thing, it can take longer than 5 seconds when SQL Server's absolutely hammered. It's not doing more work. It's just taking longer to do all of its analysis about what changed in between those 2 snapshots. Let's go ahead and cancel the load test just so this poor SQL Server, he's going to be on fire. This thing is just cranking away. Now, by default, the SP Blitz First, just simple thing. Oh, that's even interesting. I have high CPU utilization from outside of SQL Server. Something's happening at 40% CPU use, probably our buddy GoToWebinar. This is the one for end users to run. This is the one for you to run. SP Blitz First expert mode equals 1. Now, expert mode doesn't do more work, it just returns more stuff. For example, it starts with something akin to who is active, giving you the list of queries that are running right now, their query plan, their live query plan if you have that turned on. It gives you the same headline news result set. It gives you a result set about weight stats, what weights were incurred during that sample. It even tells you for storage. For example, out of that 4 seconds, I read about 2 gigs worth of data out of the Stack Overflow database out of this data file, and it took this much time each time that I went to go read. It gives you a much more in-depth analysis of what's going on the SQL Server right now. I don't want to turn that on for my end users. That expert mode is something that only I use as a pro. Now, one of the things that it'll go do, and I should go look at norms. Yeah, now it'll trigger. One of the things that it will go do when I go run it again now is it will also alert me if, say, there's a backup running in the middle of the day. Now, there's a trigger on that. You'll notice that it didn't show you that the first couple times I ran it because it's waiting for the backup to take at least 5 minutes before it throws an error. If you're running log backups all day, that's not the problem. That's not the reason why the SQL Server is slow. But here it says priority 1 emergency. There's a backup running right now. See the click to see details? Let's go click on it. It says the backup of the Stack Overflow database is 80-some% complete. It's been running since noon. The login who ran it is Norm, the new guy. And then over the last 60 days, the full backup usually takes about 3 minutes. These are the kinds of priority 1 urgent alarms that we can give you so that when you run SP Blitz First, now you can fill out this form. Coming back in here. Now, the symptoms are a frozen website and query timeouts because the root cause is a surprise backup being run by Norm, the new guy. If I don't take action now, the server is just going to continue to be slow for about 30 minutes, or in this case, 3. And based on that, I recommend that we put this ticket back in the help desk's queue to coordinate any questions from end users so that they get introduced directly to Norm. I don't want to even kill backup queries. I've seen instances where killing a backup query caused a system to table to go into rollback or MSDB backup sets to go into rollback and freeze the server. I just want to gracefully step out and introduce the people who are angry to the person who caused why they're angry and get them to agree. With one exception, if I ran the backup. If I ran the backup, I'm just going to kill it and go, look now, see if it works any better. So SP Blitz First, what it usually does is it rules out number 3, but not entirely. If I run SP Blitz First and I don't see things like backups running, a data file is growing, a database is shrinking. Shane says in Slack, people think that us DBAs are mean. We're just all about connecting people with the arrow of blame. So the next step that I'm going to dig into is SP Blitz Cache. Now, SP Blitz Cache, just like SP Blitz First, totally open source under the MIT license. You can distribute it. You can use it at clients. You can charge people for money to watch you run it, whatever it is that suits your fancy. Print it out, use it as toilet paper. What this thing does is it analyzes which queries in your plan cache have been the most expensive recently. They can't even be running right now, but it's more about trending over time. Let's go take a look at see how this thing runs. So I'm going to, in my diagnostic window, Sorry, Norm, I'm going to close you. It was a good run. You lost your job. It's not true. I was going to say I've never gotten anyone fired. I think I've gotten 2 people fired in my life. I'm sure both of them deserve that. That's what happens when you don't tip your database administrator. What SP Blitz Cache does is it tells you the top 10 most resource-intensive queries out of your plan cache. So you can see inside here, this is what I call the sucker board. This is the opposite of the leaderboard. This is the sucker board, the queries that suck the worst. You can see that it's very tempting immediately to go, oh, let me click in on that query text. That looks interesting. No, look out over here at the query types instead, because you can see what stored procedure names are, and you can see warnings about them. You can see issues like if they've had some kind of warning recently. They're missing indexes, they are trivial plans, long-running query, whatever. You can click on this to go see the exact query plan. If there are indexes missing, you can click on the missing index piece and they give them to you in a nice formatted detail. If you want to try to run this to test which stored procedures are vulnerable to parameter sniffing, you can click on the cached execution parameters and you get the exact call stack to run that stored procedure with the execution plans that it was cached for. But here's what I'm doing when I'm having an emergency. When I'm having an emergency and I'm trying to figure out why the SQL Server is slow, I'm going to run this and look at the sucker board and say, wait a minute, get comments details. That's never at the top of the sucker board. Ideally, you know which queries are the most resource intensive on your system. This is, again, where monitoring tools are awesome and they can trend this stuff for you over time, but you actually have to use the monitoring tool to figure that out. You have to watch it on a regular basis and see what it's saying. But when I look at this thing and I go, get comments details, that's never at the top of the sucker board. What's going on there? Maybe it got a bad query plan. I can't possibly do justice to explaining parameter sniffing inside this session, but with parameter sniffing, SQL Server sniffs the first set of parameters. In this case, as I scroll a little bit across here, this set of parameters and builds a perfect execution plan for that. Well, it builds an execution plan for that. It's not necessarily optimized for any other calling parameters. So what you may be tempted to do is say, if you've never seen this query at the top of the sucker board before, and you're confident that nothing has changed, you're like, we didn't do a deployment. Software's been exactly the same as it has been for weeks. Just all of a sudden the server's on fire and this query that's never been at the top is all of a sudden at the top of the sucker board. Then you might be a victim of parameter sniffing. And in a perfect world, I would have you write it up. I'm going to go show you here. Come in to my write-up. In a perfect world, you would say, well, the symptoms are frozen query timeout and or frozen website and query timeouts. I think that the root cause is a bad query for get comments or bad query plan for get comments details. If I took it out of the plan cache, it'll get a brand new execution plan the next time that it's generated. I am still playing Russian roulette though. Just because I fix this query plan by nuking it out of the plan cache, that doesn't mean it's going to suddenly magically get a perfect one next time. I am still gambling on whatever parameters get called in next. But I tell you what, I sure like what I'm about to do more than what I've seen people restarting the SQL Server, rebuilding indexes, or updating statistics, or running DBCC free proc cache. All of these do exactly the same thing. All they're doing is giving your SQL Server amnesia. Fixing parameter sniffing this way is like saying, my server has really bad memories, so I'm going to take a tire iron to it and beat the hell out of it so it doesn't remember anything anymore. Are you happier now, SQL Server? Or you want me to hit you again? No, that's not what my childhood was like, in case you're asking. So the way that I'm going to fix it much better, once I've written this up, once I've said, hey, I think that the plan might be this query plan, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at SP Blitz Cache. If it's a stored procedure, you might be tempted to do this. SP recompile and then get comments details. This will remove that query plan or the query plan for that object in the cache, but you don't always have that option. Sometimes it's not a stored procedure. Sometimes it's, parameterized SQL that came in from the application. So instead, the better way to do it, or at least the way that I prefer, is I'm going to run SP Blitz Cache with expert mode turned on. Almost all of our tools have expert mode available, just for smart people like you. Not really for smart people like you. Once this runs, I'm going to go all the way over to the far right-hand side. Here's get comments details. It's the top line. This is the one that I've never seen before. I'm going to go all the way over to the top right and look at what I have over here. Free this plan from the cache or free this T-SQL from the cache. In case your T-SQL has several different plans, like if it's being executed inside the context of different databases, if it has different ANSI settings, you could just remove the one SQL handle, the plan handle. I'm usually just going to remove the whole T-SQL handle. Just have anything that's calling this, go ahead and nuke out. Now, I said just a second ago, I'm not a really big fan of free proc cache. I'm a huge fan of this free proc cache because this only nukes that one statement out of the plan cache. Now, what I'm going to do when I go through and free that one plan from the cache is that the very next time that it runs, it gets a new execution plan, but only the next time that it runs. If that query, because see, it's gone from the list now, if that query is already in flight in several sessions, it does not get a new plan for those sessions. You might have to kill those. But as those taper off, this is when I go back and check in with my end users and I go, let me pop back over here into the PowerPoint. Was this assessment correct? If so, now I got to go worry about fixing that particular query plan. I have the wrong stored procedure name there in the slide deck. Let's go fix that just so that you guys don't think I'm weird on the recording. So this is get comments details. Play. So I still have to fix that long term. Otherwise, the next time that this thing goes out of cache, I'm right back where we started. The SP Blitz Cache usually does a pretty good job of number 3, maybe number 4. But now I'm at the point where who's active runs, who's active didn't show me any big long running queries or any blocking. Blitz First didn't show me any emergencies, and Blitz Cache shows me that the same queries at the top of my plan cache are the same ones that have been at the top of my plan cache. Now is when I turn to the person who came into my cubicle and I go, show me what you've got. What do you think is slow? And then what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to look inside the database that they're hitting and start doing index design checks. Are we maybe missing some indexes that would help lots of queries get better? Like Kirthi says, this is his whole entire question. Corrupted DB resolution? No. That's another session. So then in there, if I do go do an index check across with SP Blitz Index, now I start to have a different kind of form to fill out. Teaching you the depths of index tuning is also beyond what the scope of what I can do in a 1-hour triage session. But my results with the Norm or whoever brings this query to me usually looks like this. The symptoms aren't that the server is screwed. The symptoms are just that we have slow reports on the sales table. And I think the root cause is improper indexing on that table. Now, when I'm triaging an emergency, when this person had come into my cubicle, oh, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore, I'm not going to necessarily change those indexes live. If I'm bored, if I have nothing else to do, I might pull it off. But what I would rather do is put this in my performance tuning queue to make doggone sure that whatever I'm doing is actually right and making things faster. And then finally, there's the last thing that I'm going to use. And this isn't really an emergency tool. This is a general health check tool. SP Blitz tells you why you will get fired. Priority levels 1 through 50 on SP Blitz are the reasons why people lose their jobs. And it really is that simple. If you go through and run SP Blitz, and I will do this, anytime someone asks me to look at a server, it doesn't matter if it's a performance emergency, doesn't matter if it's a security check, doesn't matter if someone wants a new login. I'm going to go run SP Blitz because I like to keep my job. I like to know that my databases are being backed up, that I don't have corruption, right, Kirthi, that I don't have databases in full recovery model that don't have transaction log backups. This thing gives you a big, long laundry list. And just like the rest of our tools, it's prioritized. During an emergency, I'm only going to look at priorities 1 through 50. Stuff past 50 is I may want to know about, but stuff 1 through 50, dude, I want to know about right now. My backups haven't been performed recently. I got full recovery model without backups. Some yo-yo is set up auto close and auto shrink. Somebody's been running DBCC. The remote DAC is disabled. Now, if you're just getting started with tools like this, a lot of these terms may scare the daylights out of you, and you may not know what these mean. That's where the URLs come in. We've written up pages on the website to teach you how to fix each of these. I'm a consultant. I don't want you to hire me to fix your backups. Just go fix your backups. There's URLs in here about how you put in, for example, Ola Hollengren's totally free scripts, or Minionware, Midnight DBA's totally free scripts. So coming back, and so I'll end up running that just anytime I have any kind of a performance emergency or health emergency. What we talked about inside here, your tools to triage performance, every time there's an emergency, these are the tools that I step through in the exact same order that I do. All of this is open source, except your monitoring software that you're going to have to go shell out a little bit of money for. But who is active from Atom Mechanic? We link to it. SP Blitz First, Blitz Cache, Blitz Index, Blitz. These are all open source. Adams is copyrighted, but he wants you to go through and use it in your day job to troubleshoot what's going on during these emergencies. Now let's go see what you guys' questions have been. Let's see here. Jacob says, other than blocking, what are the other most common performance issues that I've seen? Oh man, I could just go on and on. Slow hardware, bad queries, query optimizer bugs. It's just a huge, huge list of things there. But that's why I built that kind of thing into SP Blitz First, so that it tells you the most common reasons for performance issues. It's not your name, it's my mouth from talking continuously. All of a sudden it catches up with me. Habtamu asks, is there a way to estimate the rollback cost prior to issuing the kill command? Yeah, I used to keep a magic 8-ball on my desk. You could just roll that and then go show it. Unfortunately, there's not really a good way. I hear you laughing. Wen says, what do you think about the native monitoring tool in SSMS? Assuming that you mean, the hell is that thing? Activity monitor. It's garbage. It's just junk. It hides things. It doesn't show you common types of weights. It's just horrific. Srinivas says, is SP Blitz and Friends free? Yes. Unless, of course, you wanted to pay me $20, buy me a pizza sometime. I'm on a diet, so you shouldn't do that. Let's see. Nige says, who is active Blitz First and Blitz Cache? Do they all have to live in the master database? Nope. They can live in whatever database you want. Just keep in mind that you have to fully prefix them when you call them. And usually during an emergency, people are like, I don't have the time to put that stuff. Redwood asks, most DAC turn on? I don't know if you're just slapping words together. I would try phrasing your question in the form of a question. And then we've got a bunch of other ones in here, but they're all kind of unrelated to the thing we were going through. How do I solve deadlocks? What happens if I got lots of deadlocks? What are my recommendations for monitoring software? Just all kinds of things. What I would do is I would go through and start your education in the DBA Fundamentals YouTube channel. A lot of this stuff, I believe Kai's had a session on deadlocks in there. If you go to YouTube and you search for DBA Fundamentals, or what's y'all's website these days? Is it fundamentals.sqlpass.org or pass.org?
Sure, but the easier one is dbafund.org. So
dbafund.org. There we go.
So
all right. Well, thanks a lot for hanging out with me today, everybody. Anything that you guys want to add there as we wrap up?
Nope.
Just a thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was fantastic.
Awesome. Glad you guys enjoyed it, and see you around the web. Adios.
Thanks.